Welcome to another CNMI Decision 2024 interview, this time with James Rayphand, the fifth and final candidate for the CNMI delegate race. We've interviewed the four others before, and now we're with you here at your home. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, and thank you for doing this, and welcome to our home.
Great. And so maybe we'll just start with a bit of an introduction of yourself, who you are,
Sure.
Your ties to the Marianas.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So James is my formal name, as I was saying earlier. Everybody knows me as Jimbo. I've been out here, I'd say about 30 years. I moved out here after college, and I worked as a teacher, school administrator, and I feel like I've said this a bunch of times already in the last few weeks. So I've been out here for about 30 years. My current job right now is with OVR, which I'm actually having to resign from because of this campaign. I don't know what more to tell you. I'm a father of four kids, all kids from here. So this place that we're living on is land I bought and put in their name, right? So it belongs to the kids.
Right, and so you entered the race relatively later in the game, but you are now officially in the race. You filed. What motivated you to make the jump to say, I want to be the next delegate, possibly?
Yeah, so it was kind of a funny start to this whole thing. You know, I mean, I've always been concerned about the issues with CNMI. You know, what's going on in the CNMI, but I spent a lot of my time behind the scenes in offices. You know, working in offices, and for whatever reason, this current delegate, I've been friends with Kilidi for a long time as well, right? So I followed his career and really enjoyed having somebody in there that I liked. But you know, after I can only sit around the picnic table and talk about what I think the issues should be, what would I like to see of a delegate, who's going to replace Kilili, how they can match up to it, you know, how they're going to match up. And I could only do so much talking about it, right? So it finally came down to, you know, instead of just talking about it, let's do it. But I say it's funny because I started it out with this, and I don't know if you read the papers, but I write this.
You said you were going to lose a certain amount of weight, right?
Yeah.
Before you decided.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started out on this, really on the idea of I'm gonna run one of these days, right? Because I for a long time I wasn't able to run at all just because I'd gained so much weight. My legs were bothering me. So it started out with this sort of half-witted idea that I'm gonna run, literally run, and then, you know, and if I can run, I might as well run for office, right? It was kind of that sort of, and that's not to make light of it. I mean, again, I followed the issues. I've been a concerned citizen for as long as I've lived here, right? I've been involved in multiple things, you know, with the community, trying to help the community. So I don't know. It became sort of this, as I started to make progress in my ability to run on my treadmill and such, and I haven't made that much progress. But as I started to make progress there and lose sort of the pounds I was attempting to lose, it really just inspired me to might as well do this. You know, might as well. The idea of running for office inspired me enough to run and get in better shape. I might as well just keep it up. You know, let's do it. You know, it sounds a little silly, and I don't mean to make light of it, but that's really what happened. You know, I do have a good support system of people that do believe in me. You know, people that think I would do well, and so in part I was emboldened by their encouragement, so to speak, right? And so that's why I've landed here. You know.
And have you ever ran for office before? Have you had that urge before? What made it different this time around, especially? As I'm sure you keep up with the news, you knew that this was already a relatively crowded race with four others. So, you know, have you run before, and why now? Yeah,
thanks for asking. Yeah, in fact, I did run for BOE, the Board of Education. I ran a couple times before, and I use that word "run" lightly again because, you know, we got on the ballot, we got the signatures, and we got on the ballot, and you know, you didn't see any signs, or we didn't put. I basically ran a campaign. I think my last run for BOE, I spent $86, right, on the campaign, and I came relatively close. I was, I think, 200 votes short of being on the BOE, and that's really just by way of talking to people. So And then one time before that, it was a bigger crowd. We ran again, same thing. I got on the ballot. I am fairly passionate about educational issues. Like I said, I was an educator. And in particular, what I liked about BOE is that it really is a volunteer. It's a volunteer position, right? And so I got into it on that note that, you know, I've been fortunate to accumulate a certain level of experience and ideas and thoughts that I thought I could contribute, right? And I still feel like I can contribute to the CNMI. The delegate, of course, is a big jump from running for a volunteer position with BOE, but you know, the issues are still the issue. There's still revolving issues for all of us, right? So yeah, I've done it before. As far as why this race, I think opportunity presented itself, right? And I've said this a couple times, and I try to be very careful, because I like the people that I know running, the candidates. I've known a couple of them I like them on a personal level, right? I really, you know, I've mentioned this before. Ed and my sons were teammates on soccer, right? John said his kids were in my sister's class, and I've known John years and years. We used to go on the John Gonzalez show to talk, right? So we've got these personal relationships, and so I want to point that out. That I'm careful to say this in a way that doesn't disparage them in any way. I got nothing against them personally. I just felt like, or I feel like, they weren't representative of me, right? We certainly have lived different lives. You know, we at least from what I can see, and the way we approach issues is different. The way we speak about issues is different, right? I felt like maybe the voters could use a different type of voice, and that's going to be up to them to decide, right? That's why the democratic system is the way it is, right? I'm just offering another choice. So for emphasis, you know, I'm running because I don't feel like they were representative of me. That doesn't mean they were worse than me or in any sense that I'm better than them by any means. I'm bringing a different set of experience, different set of skills too, right? I mentioned some of the work I've done, but I've been managing federal grants for a while. Primarily, I've had really good successes working, like building relationships with people, at least within the confines of my work, right? And I think that's what the delegate's office needs. I think that's what Kilili offered, that sense of relationship building, right? Even with someone, you know, it didn't matter who you were. For me, it's really a matter of approach, right? And how you approach a need. How you feel needs, right? How you're gonna set up the office to be able to absorb whatever the concerns are in the community, and then how you're gonna process it to be able to try to move forward and find resolution to it. So again, it's not necessarily that we have differences on the issues. I suspect we probably share a lot of the same opinions about which issues matter the most, right? And some of us are better at articulating it than others. I can say I'm not the best at articulating my ideas, but I know my experience has allowed me to be able to field and resolve concerns, right? So that's what I'm approaching it as.
When you look at things like the economy, the military, obviously as a non-voting delegate, there are things that you're limited in doing, but you do have a seat in Congress. What's your approach there? What do you think needs to be done? We've heard conversations about the cabotage exemption. We've heard conversations about either reining in the military or allowing them to develop more. What are some of your views on issues like that?
Yeah. So cabotage has already been introduced, as you know, the exemption on cabotage has been introduced, and I think we should try to push through and get that right. It seems like all the people that know, and by the way, I have to get information from those who know best, right? No one candidate knows everything that needs to happen and what's best for the CNMI, but from what I gather, from those people who should know best, that's something we need to do. It's been introduced. By all means, let's follow through on that. As far as military, I know there's polarized views on whether military should be here or not, right? All I can really say is, I sleep comfortably at night knowing that we have military presence in our midst, right? I'm not one who's going to suggest that everything should trump military presence, right? we absolutely need our military here, and that's not just for economic reasons. I mean, for security reasons. I think any of us who thinks this forum alone, or this opportunity to be able to run for an office like this, ultimately is grounded in military action, right? Something that military earned for us over the years, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but what I would also say is that the military of now is actually very responsive and very conscientious about its impact on communities, right? The military buildup around here, it took years for them to, there was a lot of back and forth with local communities and local authorities to try to develop a program that was suitable, that didn't harm the local environment as it might, right? So I think military of today is also very conscientious, but ultimately, man, I want to see. I like having the military presence here, and if they can contribute economically, all the better, right? I heard one of the candidates speak about having to balance security interests with economic interests, right? And what better way to do it? That you certainly have to try to draw a balance between the two. It shouldn't be you have to pick one or the other. Does that? Yeah.
And I know you declared as an independent, but I guess if you came to the decision earlier on, would you have run as a Democrat or Republican? I guess
No.
How would you describe yourself?
No, I wouldn't have run as either. There was a time in my life, I went to a very conservative school in Virginia, in really old school Virginia, extremely conservative upbringing, right, in that crowd. There was a time where I think I might have proudly said I was a Republican, right? I've never been a registered Republican or anything. There was a time, and I admittedly have, leanings, more conservative leanings, I think. Don't call me on what those leanings might be, but no, I wouldn't have declared as a at this age, at this stage in my life, I feel strongly about being staunchly independent, and that's not just from party politics, that's in life, right? I think it's important that, if you're looking to label me, I think a staunch independent, and I think some people have confused independent with some sort of party called independent, right? But I mean independent in the literal sense of it, right? I think it's important to be able to come right down the middle on issues and sort of pick and choose what resonates with you, right? So I don't ever want to be beholden to party politics in any way.
And speaking of that, because you don't have any major party backing you, you mentioned before you spent $86 on that last campaign. It's truly grassroots. You want to keep it that way?
I do. I'm having this debate with a few of my family, my closest family members who are assisting me, who are, I should say, who have supported me in this and who helped me get signatures and all that stuff. We're having that debate, and I'm the debate really comes down to signage, right? People, those near and dear to me, the people I love with everything, are trying to convince me that I need to put signs of my face around the islands, right? Put the billboards, and I think that's where I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to have I don't want to disrespect their input on it. They know more about getting voted into stuff than I do, right? I would like to keep it a grassroots. I would still like to keep it that way. We also want to win, right? I mean, we do want to win this. We do want to win this election. From all indications, it seems like the only way you can win is that kind of exposure, right? And I'm not sure I'm gonna fall into that, right? I think I'm gonna try to convince them that we're gonna try to win by using pamphlets or social media or anything but these gaudy, bigger than life pictures of myself along the side of the road, right? I might agree I have one piece of property that's roadside. I would possibly agree to putting a sign on my own property, right? I feel kind of weird about putting my sign on different parts of government property too, right? So I know that's maybe a little bit too much detail about what we're talking about, but I would like to keep it grassroots. I will say it is an extremely intimidating prospect to be going up against the system in a sense, right? I mean, we've got at least one of the candidates has just about every political heavy in the CNMI backing him, right? And that's including my bosses, my current bosses now, right? And I've had to. I should make this clear. I mentioned that I've submitted a resignation to my bosses, the governor and lieutenant governor. I should make it clear that they didn't request for it, right? In my conversation with the governor, he was, gentlemanly as he was trying to say, it's a little hard to have our own cabinet member running against our person we're endorsing. But at no point did they ask me to resign. I did that out of courtesy, right? I think, to be honest, I didn't think about it. I figured I could ask for leave, take leave, win or lose, I could come back or not, right? But the more I thought about it, it is a little bit of a, I don't want to say a slap in the face, because it's a little bit, it felt wrong for me to be running against somebody that my bosses are so strongly endorsing, right? So
it sounds like you don't consider yourself a politician at all. Absolutely
not, man. In fact, it could be, that might be my biggest downfall in any election, right? Is I think I'm going to be too quick to say what comes to my mind. I'm not trying to govern even what I say, right? And I'm getting advice and some guidance from a lot of good people who are trying to tell me to, you need to do this, you need to do this a certain way, and I feel fairly confident, and I feel relatively comfortable in the way I present myself. I know my intentions are good. I know I treat people well. I don't ask for people for anything. That's the other thing that's really hard for me, is asking for, in this case, votes, right? So I hope to convince people to vote for me based on just based on the knowledge and the idea that I'm capable of doing this job, But no, am I a politician? No. I think I went off track from what you asked, but
all good.
Yeah.
I did also want to mention, we were chatting beforehand, and you're a Turkish American.
Yeah.
I guess, how do you think that impacts the race, or the perspective you bring into the race as well?
I think 30 years ago, I don't think it would have even been possible or even a thought. I think there was some lingering racial tensions with Chukis in particular. At least some of us that lived here have been able to surpass that, right? I think for the most part, the local population we've gotten all mixed up, so to speak, right? And I think people realize that, regardless of race, it's really our character that speaks. So I can't speak for all Chukis. It's like you can't speak for all Chamorros, right? We're gonna have bad seeds in every culture, in every race. To your question, does it factor? Maybe for a very small contingent of people who still don't have a clear understanding of what the Chukis people are really like, what our customs are really like. And by the way, I'm from the outer islands of Chuk, right, Mortlakis, which I think tend to be even more traditional than the Lagooners, as we should. But overall, I mean, the base ideology of our customs and our culture and traditions very similar to Chamorro, including the matrilineal notion. The Chamorros are matrilineal society. Mortlakis are as well, right? Meaning that the land follows the women usually, right? So again, I keep, remember, I'm frazzled after a long day of work, right? So I keep going off, but to your question, does it factor in? I think not. I think if it factors in, it's actually going to be on a positive. I think the pendulum has shifted from a really negative impression of Chukis and other maybe indigenous populations here. It's actually shifted to a more positive perspective. There's a lot more appreciation for things that are Chukis and Mortlakis, and so I say all that to say I'm really proud of my heritage, right? And I'm really proud of my kids' heritage. I really don't see race when I do things. My kids are all mixed up too, right? But I've got part Carolinian kids, and I've got part Chamorro kids as well. So if being Chukis factors in, I think it's going to be on a positive. At least I hope. I should say that one of my initial encounters with Kilili was around the subject of me being Chukis, right? Because he, I think we all know this. I don't think this is a secret. He definitely has a soft spot for the Chukis people. He lived there for a while. He's got friends that are Chukis, and that's actually how we connected. He's older than me, but he connected with me in a way that really showed me a different side of. Not all Chamorros, but a different side of Chamorros. That there was a reverence for the Chukis' custom and cultures, and I love seeing that, right? And I think, he won me over from that. I've been friends with him before he was in office, but he won me over just on that alone. I don't know if that answers your question again.
Yes. And so you've mentioned you're keeping your campaign grassroots. What do the next few weeks look like until November? Are you going house to house? What's your strategy looking like?
Right now, I actually have a meeting with my and when I say my group, because we haven't, it's basically my siblings and a few close friends, to try to decide what those strategies are. I'm going to try to take the big billboards off the board, because that's, again, I'm going to respect their ideas, and I'm going to try to take that off the board. If we'll see if I win in that argument, because ultimately we want to win this race, right? What I'm also sharing with them and with anyone else, we want to win the race, but not at all costs, right? We're not going to win at the cost of changing our general comfort levels or our belief systems, right? I, for some reason, just have an aversion to seeing my big fat face along the side of a road somewhere. I don't want to see it, right? And if I'm going to pass my picture on, it's going to be on a piece of paper where somebody can read it or not, and they can crumple up and throw it away if they want. I'm not going to force feed my face into, again, I understand subliminal messaging and advertising, but so what it looks like is we're going to meet, we're going to decide on what maybe those strategies are. House to house, I think, is a must. On this condition with the qualifier that I really want to go house to house with people that our general network already knows, right? I feel really strange about walking up to a house of people I don't know, and again, they're going to talk me out of that, I know, because that's how we introduce ourselves. But that's it. It's going to be. We're probably gonna print. Well, we should print flyers and stuff that include some talk about what are important to us and things like that. But it certainly house to house, I think, is going to be it, and we've done some of that already. We've just by way of connections with, again, my better half of my family, my brother's better halves. They're connecting me to people that they know, and vice versa. And of course, my kids' families are pretty big, so I'd like to make a point to visit with them, not to pressure them into voting for me, but at least to remind them, that I'm here, and if hopefully they've had good impressions of me all these years, and maybe they'll vote for me.
All right, thank you so much. We just have a few minutes left.
Okay.
I wanted to just open the floor if you wanted to address the constituents on why they should vote for you.
Oh boy,
coming up in November.
Yeah, you would think that I should have this down, right? But I think I said this to another one of the reporters. I'm a writer by nature, so I fear redundancy, right? So when I start to repeat myself, I get a little creeped out, right? Like I should change it. The best that I can tell you is that my intentions are good. I would say I have a really good track record in working with people. I have a really good track record in holding offices, right? Mind you, microcosms of what the delegate office is, but I have a really good track record of building those relationships required to do the work that needs to be done. I have a particularly good, and here's where I'll leave it. In all of the rhetoric and all of the campaign noise, what is forgotten are the people that work in the office, right? I haven't heard a single thing about who besides Kilili works in the office, right? What I'm really good, what my track record is really good at working with the people within the office, the people doing the work, right? The delegate can't do the job he's supposed to do without the people in those positions doing the work they're supposed to do. That's where I think I'm really good. I'm really good about ensuring that the people I'm working with, the people that are doing the work, feel respected, they feel encouraged, and empowered to do the best that they can do. So I have a disadvantage of not knowing who's in the offices, right? I don't know the relative staff. I don't know who stays, who goes. I don't know any of that. What I know is whoever is there, we need you, because the institutional knowledge that you bring is, it's irreplaceable. Nobody's just going to walk in and be able to pick up where Kalili left off, and that's ultimately what I want to do. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. You've heard it here from James Rayphand, a U.S. delegate candidate for the CNMI. Thank you for joining us, and we'll have more on KUAM.com.